I do a lot of like how to manage volunteers trainings. And I always bring up this 4-panel block, which is like the intersection of, do they actually do work or not? And are they causing problems or not? Right. And really, when you're talking about volunteers, you're only talking about the people who do work and cause no problems.
So I'm sure some folks are thinking, this all makes a ton of sense when I'm early in my campaign cycle and I have more time. But how about when I get new volunteers in and we're in those last couple of months, we're heading into GOTV? What do? I barely have enough time as it is, little less to like have this space with volunteers. So what is your advice when it comes to that crunch time?
Mass training sessions. I think the most folks that I've trained to do like door knocking at a time, it might have been like 52. Just because we're getting closer, it's more important that we hit things on the nose and we do things in a very particular way. Because if you don't properly train a volunteer and they go on the door and offend someone, they are offending someone in the name of your candidate, not on their own. And so it's still critical to make sure that like you have some flexibility, but like the consistency is still there. Folks are still being trained. They feel like they still have access. If it's not like one-on-one time, it's okay, here's my phone number, text me. I'll be the point person for this area if you have any issues on the doors, and I can pop up if you need, just to make sure folks still feel comfortable. Because I've also had folks freak out and just be like, I'm not finishing this. I just want to go home. Yeah. So making sure that it's like, okay, understanding that because we don't want to rush and have folks, that's where people begin to feel expendable again. And I think that's an important part of volunteer management, is making sure that we've kind of brought back the humanity to our campaigns and people feel seen in the campaign, even if it's crunch time, right? Because they're coming in at crunch time to be a part of the solution. So making sure that you find some kind of creative ways to make sure they're still getting what they need and the campaign does not have to worry about some kind of HR crisis or a media crisis at the end of the long road.
You should never not be prepared to receive a volunteer, right? So like, even if you don't have anybody scheduled for a volunteer shift, you should always have like a checklist of what needs to get done that day that a volunteer can plug into if they show up. So if somebody comes to the campaign headquarters or gives you a call and is like, I have 3 hours today, like, what do you need? You should always have an answer for that person that they can say yes to. You know, people can't say yes unless you ask them to do things. And, you know, I think it's a level of respect to show your volunteers to let them answer that question and not set their limitations for them, right? It's like, you may know that they have 100 things going on in their life, but they actually might like deprioritize something because they think that the campaign is more important, or they have, you know, the ability to pitch in more than you really think. So
Brittny, I want to ask you, because you mentioned something really important, which is how your volunteers are ambassadors for your campaigns. And you want to make sure they are prepared to be the best ambassadors ever. What are some red flags that you look for in volunteers that tells you, hey, maybe this person is not going to be the best ambassador for my campaign?
I think one of the things that's really important on campaigns is cultural competency too. So I remember flagging for folks who were running a state Senate race I was volunteering for, that there were neighborhoods that weren't really welcoming to people who looked like me. And it was brushed off until the cops were called on several people. And so it's really important to also just like recognize that there's a balance between understanding cultural competency and knowing like, okay, this is how we're going to prepare for that, and make sure that you're not put in a situation where you're uncomfortable or put in handcuffs, because those are the kinds of things that really leave a bad taste in people's mouths. And then also just making sure that the other basic human things, right? Respecting people's personal space, respecting people's pronouns, really like simple things. I think it's important that with volunteers, they understand that they have a code of conduct they have to sign on. They're not being paid, but as representatives of the campaign, as volunteering, they're signing on. On some of the governor's races I worked on, I had folks sign social media contracts, and I had them sign code of conduct contracts, just as an understanding of like, I recognize that you have your own life, but until this ends, you do not have your own life. If you have the shirt on, if you have the lawn signs, if you have the lit, if you are talking about this, you're going to be seen as a representative of the campaign. And if you are not going to act accordingly, I'm going to remove you, remove you from that privilege of being a part of this. And so that's only had to happen a few times. People understand that after you have a conversation or two with them.
When I have worked for candidates who've been able to get really clear about what their core values are, that has been hugely helpful for managing volunteers, because it's like literally on the wall, here are our 5 core values. This is the one that I think we're falling short of right now, and I need you to fix it, or I need you to try and come back a different day. And having those conversations and feeling ready to have those conversations. And to Elaine's earlier point, like if you are going to pay people to manage people, making sure they're ready for those conversations and clear, these are our core values, this is what it means to uphold them. And yeah, I had a volunteer who I was like, hello, sir, you are now on shred duty, and you will shred all of our paper because you have lost the privilege of talking to voters, and you still want to be helpful, and we appreciate that. So this is what we need your help with. And he is one of the best shredders I've ever worked with. He was on it. Finding those reasonable alternatives is sometimes really important, and making sure people feel empowered to say, this person can't be talking to voters right now, and like that needs to be part of those conversations.
Yeah,
I want to just echo that so heavily, that when I do a lot of like how to manage volunteers trainings, and I always bring up this 4-panel block, which is like the intersection of, do they actually do work or not, and are they causing problems or not? Right? And really, when you're talking about volunteers, you're only talking about the people who do work and cause no problems, right? It is actually important to understand who involved in your campaign is a volunteer and who is just either a supporter, or, which is great to know, because if you're a supporter, you can just like sit at the front desk and say hi to people when they walk in, but you're not going to go knock doors. You're not causing problems, but you're not going to work. So like, just put them in the appropriate place. I have had a similar shredder. I just had somebody go deliver lawn signs, right? Like, go to these addresses and stick them in the grass. You don't have to interact with people. You're getting something done that needs to happen. You can go send somebody to get coffee for everybody. Like, they don't have to contribute necessarily to the campaign in a way that like puts the campaign in jeopardy in some way. But I also just want to echo what Brittny said about the cultural competency, because, you know, there's a couple of things that we really need to pay attention to when we're assessing the strengths and weaknesses and abilities of the people on our campaign. And we always want to make sure that we're putting our volunteers in places that are safe for them. I have also had a volunteer who he wasn't Black, but he was racialized as Black a lot because he was a dark-skinned Indian man. And he also had the cops called on him. And we realized, like, we really need to, just for your own safety. And he felt safest when he was with another volunteer. Or we had a button that he wore, and he wore it in the middle of his chest, like extremely visible, like, I am with a campaign. And that was what made him feel safe and put him in a situation that his safety was prioritized. So that's so important. But I think one of the things that we don't necessarily pay as much attention to with volunteers and their capabilities, there's obviously race and gender and things that are visually understandable with people, but invisible disabilities and neurodivergence is also something we need to be cognizant of when we are talking to our volunteers, training them to talk to voters. Not everybody is capable of having a long, nuanced conversation with the voter at the door, and we need to be respectful and maybe even ask questions about, like, if you want to share information about whether or not you feel comfortable being able to accomplish this goal, like, you can tell me and I'm not going to judge you for it. I just want to make sure that you are set up for success.
Hi, I'm Rosetta Okeson, one of NDTC's trainers. For more political trainings like this, please check out our website at traindims.org. Thank you so much for watching.